Hi there, this is video 15 and it handles pages 34 through to 41 in your notes. Now, a dashboard doesn't typically only include charts. It often includes what we call pivot tables. And pivot tables are fabulous when you've got a large amount of data because they allow you to summarize what's going on with that data, again providing you with business insights. So what I'd like to do is take you through creating another dashboard, this time based on pivot table information. First thing I want to do is insert a new sheet. So I'm just going to go for this circle and this plus, and I might just double click it and call it pivot dashboard. I'll put the title pivot dashboard in the top. Actually, let's just have a look at this for a second. Yes, pivot dashboard. Just wanted to make sure I was being true to my notes. Pivot dashboard, and I'd like to make it 20. To make this more dashboard-esque, what I'm going to do is take off the grid lines and take off the headings. So we go to view in the ribbon and we untick grid lines. If we untick headings, we'll lose the column headings and the row numbering, which I think is great for a dashboard. So let's turn both of those off under view. Next thing I want to do is I want to go to the master data. I want to sit in A1. Now notice the pivot table is not coming off the calculation sheet. The pivot table I'm creating is based on the data. Okay, sitting in A1, I'll go to insert in the ribbon, and hard left is a button called pivot table. Now it immediately wiggles around A1 to X201. That is all the data. Now I think it's best practice not to base your pivot tables on a range, because that range does tend to grow and shrink as time moves on and data changes. I think it's best to base your pivot tables on entire columns. So I'm going to scroll back and select columns A to X. And so columns A to X is the source of this pivot table, and I'll go OK. Oh no, I'll put it in an existing sheet, not a new sheet, and the location is pivot dashboard and probably A4, or should I choose, no, A4's A3. Let's choose A3 and OK. Immediately we are sitting in what they call a pivot table report. You can see it here, and because you're in the right place, you're seeing the fields list on the right hand side. You're seeing pivot table analyze appear in the ribbon and design to the right of that. But the moment I click away from what this is, that's click here for example, I lose the field list and I lose the pivot table analyze and the design tabs because I'm out of context. As soon as I click back on my pivot report, they reappear. So if that happens to you, just click back on the pivot table and they'll reappear. If you tell the field list to go away and you are sitting in the pivot report, there's a button up here on the pivot table analyze tab called field list, which brings up and sends away the field list on the right hand side. So that's that. Now your field list may look different to mine. I like to lay my field list out in a different way than the default. This little options or tools button here, if you click this, you're probably seeing your layout more like this first option, like this. What I find is that our source data usually has a lot of columns, and I don't like this layout when I have a lot of columns. So I actually hit this little tools again and choose the second option. So that's what I'll be working with, and I can see more fields here. Not only do I like to see this layout, but I like to go back into this little tools button, and I like to sort my field list, that's these column headings here, from A to Z. And if I sort them from A to Z, it makes it easy for me to find a particular field, which basically equates to a particular column in my source data. All right. So let's make a pivot table. First thing I want to do is I want to put gender as my row, as my columns. So I grab this field and I drop it into the columns bucket. And so now I see female, male, and blank. The blank is because we base it on entire columns. You can hit this drop down and you can untick blank, and so then you'll only see female and male, which I think is a great idea. Then what I want to see as my rows are the departments. So in the D's, I've got department primary, and I've dropped that into rows. So now I'm seeing my departments alphabetically listed, a unique instance of each department down the left-hand side. I could even name this departments. And I'm seeing my gender across the top, alphabetically organized. And again, I could name this gender. And what I want to see when the department and the gender intersects is I actually want to count the number of employees. So I'm going to grab employee ID, drop it into values, and it will actually sum, and I don't want to sum. So I'm going to go into the sum of employee, value field settings, tell it I don't want to total or sum the employee IDs, I want to count the employee IDs. So I choose this option and OK. And so now I've got a pivot table which basically, let me zoom in, basically shows me department as my rows, gender as my columns, and it counts the employee IDs at the intersection. I can see the total number of females, total number of males, total number of employees in each department, and then a breakdown of each department by gender and a total number of 200 employees. So you can see how a pivot table is a very, very useful way of summarizing what's going on in what is otherwise a huge data set. We get summarized information like this, which is brilliant. Okay, I now would like to also format this pivot table to a dark green sort of a look. So what you can do, and this is why you have the design tab to the right of your pivot table analyze tab, go into design, there's a whole lot of styles here, and in the dark section there's dark green number 4, and that's the one I actually want to apply, so I'm going to choose that. Now I do want to turn on banded rows, so I'll tick that, and that just gives me an alternating color of my rows. So you can quickly and easily improve the design of your pivot table with just a couple of clicks in the design tab. I'd now like to create another pivot table. All right, so I'm going to go back to my master data, and I'm going to click somewhere in the data, A1 or what have you. I'll go to insert, I'll choose pivot table. I want to base it on control home, entire column. So I drag from A to X. And in an existing worksheet, and I choose the location by going to pivot dashboard and deciding where I actually want to put it, which I'm going to put it in F3, which I can just see here in my name box is this cell here. So I go OK, and it tells me there as well. Here is my new pivot table. I'm going to decide how I want to lay that pivot table out. So I'm actually asking for department as a row. Department, oh, now it's a new pivot table, so it doesn't have these sorted alphabetically. And so I'm looking in the D's for department, noticing, oh, so then I go back into here, sort A to Z, so that I can easily find department and put that into my rows. Okay. Now, within each department, I want to see job title. So this proves the point that you can add more than one field to a bucket. We've added department. Now I'm going to go down to my J's, and I'm going to add job title under department. So there is my department, and then there's the job title of the jobs within that department. And what I'm going to do here, I'm actually going to just, I might actually go to view and just turn on my headings for the moment, because then it makes it easy for me to resize, and I'll turn them back off later. Okay, so I click on my pivot table, I've got my department as a row, and then under that I've got my job title as a row. Now I want to add age 3 times to the values bucket. So I'm going to grab age and add it once, twice, 3 times to my values bucket. Now what I want to do is I want to show the youngest age, the oldest age, and the average age of employees in each of these departments. So I'm going to start by clicking on sum of age and go into the value field settings. I want to use the function min to find the youngest or the minimum age, and I'm actually going to type youngest. I'll then choose OK, and there's my youngest for each department and each job title. Now I'll go into sum of actual 2, value field settings. Now I want the largest or my maximum, and I'll call this column oldest, and okay, youngest and oldest. Now I'll go into the sum of age 3, the value field settings, and I want the average. And so I'm going to call this literally average age, and okay. Now, when I look at the averages, they're very precise. So I want to format the average numbers. Go back into average age value field settings. There is a number format button here. If I choose number format, I can say I want to show it as a number, but 0 decimal places, and okay, and okay, and that just rounds it off nicely. Now, I also want to see no blank records. Have I got a blank? I've got a blank there. So let's go up to the top here, hit the row labels drop down, scroll to the bottom and untick blank, and then blank will not appear. It'll be filtered out. So you can filter out your pivot tables really, really easily. That's great. And then what I want to do, I'm just looking at the example saying this needs to say department and job title. So that looks good. And then I just really need to format it, and I want to apply a medium 11 green. So design medium green, that's 18 and that's 11. So that's that, and I'll turn on the banded rows because I think that will make it easier for people to read across. So that is my second pivot table. When I click on this pivot table, this is the field list and the settings for that pivot table. When I click on this pivot table, this is the settings for that particular pivot table. Be careful putting pivot tables one under each other if those pivot tables are likely to grow in terms of height, because they will start to run over each other. So a lot of the pivot tables, we put them side by side, or we give them ample room to grow if we put them one under each other. The next pivot table I'd like to create is the gender pivot table. I'm just going to have a look at the diagram here. All right, and I'll just zoom in on that. So I'm just looking at your notes just to make sure we follow it nicely. Gender, so if I go back to master data and I click somewhere in the list and I go to insert pivot table, I then base it on columns A to X, best practice. I want to put an existing sheet. I want to locate it in the pivot dashboard, and it's actually quite a way down. Maybe let's go for A30. We can always move it, and okay. What we're seeing is gender. Now these are not alphabetically organized. So I'll go to my tools and I'll sort from A to Z. I'll put the gender as a row, and I will put management and non-management, so management underneath that. I want to filter out the blanks, so let's take blanks off. So I'm seeing females in management, females in management, females non-management, etc. And then I want to put the employee ID in the values bucket. But I don't want to sum the employee IDs. I actually want to see what percentage of staff are female or male, and what percentage are in management and non-management. So let's go into sum of employee ID, value field settings. Show values as is where I want to head to. No calculation is the default. I want to change that to percentage of the column total. And I want to give it the name, which is just a percent symbol above the 5, and okay. And so then I can see that 58% of the staff are female and 41% of staff are male. Now I don't need to see the 2 decimal places. Let's go back into percentage, value field settings, number format, it's percentage and 0 decimal places, and okay, and okay. And that just shows it nice and concisely. Now the row labels, I'm just going to type gender as a label. And I want to go back to design, I want to go back to medium and choose 11. And turn on banded rows. Now I'm looking at this thinking, no, it should have been down a little bit in line with planning. So I'm sitting in this pivot table, I go to pivot table analyze, I move the pivot table with this button here, and I tell it to, by clicking on this cell here, A31 and OK, I tell it to go down to A31. So you can easily move, don't cut and paste, just a little bit too much on the wild side. I would use the move pivot table button just to be safe. Now I'd also like to create a pivot chart to go with this pivot table. So I'm going to click the pivot chart button. I'll choose maybe bar and OK. And I've now got a pivot chart. Now the title, I'm going to edit that to say management and gender. I don't need these field buttons. So when you click on the pivot chart and you go to pivot chart analyze, turn off the field buttons and it'll get rid of those. And that looks better. I also don't need to see total. I could just click that and hit the delete key. That would get rid of that. Or go to the green plus and turn off legend. And I need it to be green in terms of look. So I'm going to go to design to the right of pivot chart analyze, change my palette to a monochromatic 3 palette, and that looks more green. And then I'm just going to resize it and with great care move it and put it into this space. And we now have a pivot chart going with our pivot tables. Let's make another pivot table. This time I'd like to go to master data, click somewhere in here, go to insert, go to pivot table, select columns A to X. So you can see some repetition here. Put in an existing worksheet. That worksheet would be the pivot dashboard, and let's put it here in K3 and OK. This time I want to see full-time, part-time, etc. So what column contains, oh, I need to sort these alphabetically, A to Z. Which column contains, let me just dive off, and full-time, part-time is employee type primary. So employee type primary is a row, and then department goes under that. So I'm seeing full-timers and where they are in terms of department. Then I want to count the employee ID, so I put that into values, but I'm going to add employee ID a second time because I'm going to want to show some percentages. All right, type and department is what I want to see as a label here. I want to filter out the blank so I don't see that in my pivot table. I can reduce the width of this column as well. I would now like to go to sum of employee value field settings because I need it to count the number of employees. So I'm going to change sum to count, and I'm going to give it the title just employees. Oops, employees. And when I OK, that will count the employees by full-time, parental, part-time, and by department. Now the second instance, sum of employee ID 2, value field settings, show values as percentage of column total, and give it the name percent symbol, and that should be, oh no, format it to 0 decimal places and OK and OK. And so that shows me that 82% of employees are full-time, 13% are part-time, 5% of staff are on parental leave, and those 5% are coming primarily from planning and property, but that's giving me a rundown. Change the design of the pivot table again to the medium 11 green look and turn on the banded rows, and that's that pivot table done. Now let's create another pivot table by location, master data, sitting in the master data, going to insert, going to pivot table, basing it on columns A to X. Existing worksheet. Going to pop this one on the pivot dashboard and going to pop it, over to O3 and OK. Now what I'd like to do is grab location. Need to sort these first, A to Z. Let's put location. So we've got here location, pay location. Drop that into rows, that's correct. Filter out the blanks, don't need those. We need to see employee ID in the values twice, once to count and once for percentages. So sum of employee ID, value field settings, we want to count and we just want to call that employees. Okay. This one, sum of employee ID 2, value field settings, show values as percentage of the column total and just a percent symbol. Number format, 0 decimal places, and okay. And okay. Next thing we want to do is design medium 11 banded rows. And let's just reduce the width of this column here. So there's our pivot table showing how many staff are based in each location, and I should really call that location, and what percentage of the total are based in the different locations. Now I'd also like to show that as a pivot chart. So I'm sitting on this pivot table, I go to pivot table analyze and I choose pivot chart. I'd like to show it as a pie chart and just a 2D pie chart, so okay. I'd like to go to pivot chart analyze and turn off the field buttons and turn off the legend. I could click it and delete it. I would like to go to design and change the colors to the monochromatic number 3. I would like to choose the layout number 1 and then just position it, just drag it by a safe spot and pop it sort of here, resize it and stretch it. So we've got our pivot chart. Perfect. One more pivot table. This is breaking the employees down into age groups. So back to master data for the last time, clicking in the list, going to insert, going to pivot table, selecting columns A to X. So you're seeing what we're doing on a repetitive basis. Choosing existing worksheet, going to the pivot dashboard and deciding to put the pivot table probably here, which is K30 and OK. Then what we do is we sort our field list from A to Z so we can clearly and easily find things. What I want to do is I want to put the age as a row, and so there they're all listed, and then the employee ID as a value. Right, so now there's too many ages listed. I want to group them. Now, if you click on an age, there is a group selection button up here on the pivot table analyze tab, or right click and just say you want to group. Now, I'd like to group starting at 25, ending at 72 is correct, but I want to group by 5s. So I put a 5 in there. And when I OK, basically it's grouped those ages into groups of bands of 5, starting at 25 and ending at 74. Now I'm going to filter out the blank. Oops, there it is there. Don't want to see the blank. And now I'm going to change sum of employee ID value field settings to count the employee IDs, and I'm just going to call it employees. So it actually counts the number of employees in each age band. This I'll call age brackets or bands or whatever makes sense to you. And let me just double click that. Ooh, yeah, no, that's good. And I will then go to design and choose medium 11 and banded rows so it looks nice. And we have effectively created our pivot dashboard, which includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pivot tables and 2 pivot charts. So when the data changes in master data, all we have to do on the pivot dashboard is click on one of the pivot tables or one of the pivot charts, go to pivot table analyze and tell it to refresh all the pivot tables. And that will make sure that all the pivot tables are up to date and current. If you wanted to, you could go to this options button on the far left of the pivot table analyze tab. And if you go into the options button and you go to data, you could tell it to refresh the data whenever you open the file. And I don't think that's a bad thing. And OK. And OK again, and that's just saying that will happen once you close this and open it. So tell it to refresh the data whenever you open the file, but should you change the data while you're in the file, rather than close and open it, just tell it to refresh, and don't refresh just the pivot table you're sitting in, refresh all the pivot tables that you've got on your pivot dashboard. I would then just proceed to work on getting this to fit nicely on a piece of paper, going into print preview and checking that it sits nicely. Now practice what you've learnt, absorb what we've covered, and I'll see you in the next video.